Hello and welcome to Challenge Accepted, the podcast that talks about what makes content truly engaging. We've been exploring clarity, creativity, we're covering empathy, insight, individuality, but there's one trait I think that ties them all together, and that's originality. The spark that surprises people, that makes them notice and helps ideas stick. Today we're talking originality with two brilliant guests. I'm totally thrilled to have joining me today someone who embodies originality in the driest content space imaginable, data. He's turned it into theatre, humour, storytelling with data puppets and the DataVengers and a polka dot shirt collection that's become iconic. He's the author of Telling Your Data Story and known to many as the Data Whisperer. Scott Taylor, welcome and thank you for being here.
Thank you, Lucy. Great to be here.
I'm so excited to have you here. That this is going to be a good one. I just know it. And of course, as always with us is our lovely Ginny Follen, the resident behavioural scientist here that's going to bring the human and psychology lens. Hey, Jen.
Hey, Luz. How you doing? Hi, Scott.
Yeah, good, thank you. I'm waiting to get to the end where we talk about the biscuits. That's what I'm here. Stick around for that. So let's start really simply. Scott, when you hear the word originality, what does it mean to you in context of content? What are you thinking of?
I think of uniqueness. I think of something that people haven't seen before, but it's also in the context of B2B content. It's got to be rooted in the business reality. So it can't, we're not talking about abstract art or trying to push some form of, major envelope to develop things that are completely unique. It's more just aligning some of those foundational B2B concepts and what we need to do to communicate the benefits of a business-oriented service or offering, but doing it in a way that captures an attention, as you mentioned in the intro, causes a little spark, has somebody go, oh, I haven't seen that before. That looks interesting.
Yeah, I mean, your Data Puppet series is one of the most original formats I've ever seen in not just data world, in all of the marketing and creative worlds that I've worked in. Where did that idea come from? And folks, if you're watching this and you have never seen the Data Puppets, hop onto YouTube, find the Data Puppets, grab yourself a cup of tea, sit back and prepare to be entertained. Where did that idea come from?
Talk about originality. If you Google the term data puppets, I am the only thing that comes up.
Hallelujah.
So it's 100% organic reach here. It's an SEO marketer's dream. I don't put any kind of, AdSense or funding behind it. So Google at least has validated that this concept is extremely original because above the fold, I'm all you see.
And that really matters at the moment, right? Budgets are being squeezed and squeezed and squeezed. So big tick for originality in that box too, right?
That works. So as you mentioned, Data Puppets, kind of the cast is anchored by the CDO, the Chief Dog Officer. I've got the Cat Sultan from Meow Kinsey. He used to work at Accenture. The ITB, who speaks only in buzzwords. A fish plays the CFO. A mouse is the CMO. An ostrich is the COO. An elephant is the CEO. I think, sometimes this stuff writes itself. Nobody's ever come up with those constructs before. I tried to find anybody who used that, and nobody has. So I'm taking ownership of it. But it came from, I've literally always done puppets. I was looking around for this little poster. I know I put it in an apartment building when I was 10, having a puppet show for the other kids in the building and doing some fun stuff there. But I love that kind of creative, dramatic approach. And I did it originally for an internal video at a company I was working for, and it just broke through. It was just a different way to deliver the kind of information that they were looking for. It was a company initiative to talk about confidence and having confidence in interactions with customers and so on. But I created this little character and it just blew up internally. And I realized, okay, this is a way to communicate, talk about really being able to break through. So then when I went off to be a full-time content creator, I had some of these ideas hit upon the CDO, the Chief Dog Officer, and it just went from there. And when I posted my original video, it's still the biggest thing I ever put out on LinkedIn and on YouTube. And the number one piece of feedback I got from folks was, this sounds like my organization. So
They
the
recognize
interplay,
themselves in it.
the banter I had with these puppets, and literally it's every line is either a setup or a punchline. This is just puns and dad jokes and corny stuff and just the ridiculousness of what happens in the enterprise data space. But it really hit a chord with a lot of data folks because, as they said, it sort of sounded like what they sound like. And that's my message. My serious message is, yeah, you sound like that. You should stop sounding like that because people don't understand you when you're using all these buzzwords and all this convoluted, complicated techno babble. But it came from that, came from there. And then I just started expanding it. I realized I didn't have enough voice range on my own to do all the characters. So I went out and talked to a whole bunch of data friends of mine who are also influencers and content creators, and their guest voices in there. So I now have a stable of about 25 characters and growing. And it's just been, it is the most intense creative thing I have ever done. It's an insane amount of work, but I just love it, love it, love it.
Yeah, it looks so effortless, but I think that's the beauty of some of these things, right? Is that it looks simple and easy and those are meant to be the best ideas, but the work that goes into it, I think for anyone that is in content creation, they will see the heart and soul that goes into it. Absolutely. Ginny, why, from a behavioural point of view, is seeing something so unusual, surprising, so much easier to stick with us? Why do we remember it so well?
I was thinking about it when, Scott, you were talking about how people recognized and they looked at it and they said, this could represent my company. So there was that element of familiarity there that I think you had with yours, but the difference was that you said something that resonated and people knew, but you said it in an original way. So what that meant was it stood out from context. And so brains were looking for pattern. They saw a pattern, but that pattern was slightly different. And that has a name. I don't know if I'm saying this correctly. It's the von Restorff effect. Von Restorff. No idea who that person was. I should probably find out, which is the isolation effect. It's that small deviation from the norm. So if you're doing marketing, look for that unexpected way of doing something, saying the same things, but in a different way. And then you can, it's a way to lean into your originality. So yeah, it worked really well.
Why do we think originality is even rarer in B2B? What's stopping an entire sector from being a little brave, being a little more risky? What
was the puppet that was the CFO, Scott?
The fish. Yes.
The fish. Yeah, I'm not blaming all CFOs, but I think it's the data. It's the needing to prove yourself. It's the not wanting to take a risk and lose your job. It's the nobody gets fired for buying IBM. Like it's all of that jazz and there's more at stake. So I guess it's the risk.
Right. And, the flip side of that obviously is safety. And most B2B brands want to stay safe. They don't want to stand out that much. They don't want to offend their customer base in a way that if you're doing creative or entertainment content in the consumer space, it's a little different. You find your audience and people don't like it, turn off. But if you're selling enterprise software, there's a risk that somebody thinks, well, none of this is a joke. None of this is supposed to be fun. And they're very straight and formal around it. So you do have, I think people are a lot more risk averse, agreeing with Jenny, when it comes to that context. I haven't always been. So even when I was representing some iconic data brands in my career, when I had what I like to refer to as a real job, I did try and use humor. I'd be entertaining. I'd be inspirational. You see me on stage, Lucy, I have a dramatic arts background in college, so I probably draw on that training more than anything I learned in college on a daily basis. And the bar is so incredibly low that anything creative stands out. So the opportunity for anybody who has that inclination is there, because all you have to do is just a little bit and you're going to stand out disproportionately among the rest of the things going on.
I do think you're responsible for more and more of the mascots that I see around Dataland. Okay. You have the snowflake bear, you have the narwhal or whatever it is that's wandering around. I do think that sits at your feet.
I'll take an indirect credit there. I've done some stuff where I go into events and I interview the swag animals. So I have interviewed the Dromio narwhal and the Valida tiger and a bunch of other little animals. I get people at the booth to be the voice of their little animal. I will tell you too, and psychologically, I don't know where this comes from, but Ginny, you probably recognize it. When I come to the booth and I talk to somebody, I tell them what I'm going to do, there's always immediate consensus of who at the booth is going to be that person.
Yeah.
To the
Yeah.
end. Like,
Just go and
yeah,
get John. He's the man for you.
yeah, you got to wait till Bill comes back because he'll do this, versus folks who are just shy. Like, no, I don't even want to. I don't want to deal with this. But
It'll be
it's so
that one
fun. You
sales
just get
guy.
people going. And for me too, part of the reason I do the puppets, I can get to the funny faster. I like to be humorous. I think it has a tremendous impact, especially when you're poking fun at things that people need to think more about, which satire and parody, its serious side that's what it's for in a lot of cases. And as a human, I've got to do a lot more setup. And people don't always know I'm joking. You've got that little balance there. But if it's a puppet, it's, it better be crazy. Otherwise, what's going on here?
Yeah.
What you were saying, Luce, about the mascots in Data, I wonder if it's because Scott gave them permission and it meant that they were able to go to their CFO or their CMO and say, here, look at the number of views that Scott got on LinkedIn through having puppets. Let's get interviewed by him. We can jump on that engagement. I wonder if it was that simple.
I don't think I love that. I love that sentiment, but I'm not quite sure I've had that much of an impact yet.
Take it, Scott.
I'll take it. All right, fine. I'll take it.
Allow us to bestow that to you.
Me,
yeah. That's yours. I think I was reading a while back that Wark and Cannes Lions were talking that campaigns using wit and humour to pick up on you, Scott, are some of the most effective and memorable, but humour can still be seen as risky in B2B. And your content, Scott, obviously leans wholly into humour in quite a serious way. Have you had any pushback? Have you had any negatives about the angles and the data puppets?
No, I haven't had that. I've been in data puppets, but I will say back at this company where I did do the original puppet, the company was Dun & Bradstreet. I'll tell you because it backs into the name of the character. So Dun & Bradstreet's known as D&B, and the character was Dean B. And it was kind of a name that people would go, Dean B. Oh, I get. Like I would watch people sort of get it. And the only people who I got any pushback, the CEO loved it, the board loved it, the client service loved it, but the marketing people were like, this isn't really on brand here, and this isn't really. And what I loved about the rest of the reaction I got were people like, this just elevates the brand. This just shows we can just break right through. So you will get some folks around the edges. But now I'm my own person. I've got, I can do what I want. I don't get any pushback anymore. People just
you don't have a CMO and a CFO to approve, right?
Exactly.
Or you don't have weights and measures. It's all on you. It's good or bad, and it's all on you. Yeah. Ginny, what's so important about humour for the human brain? Is there anything in our heads that make us more connected, more engaged with humour? Why humour?
I'm sure there are lots of neuroscientific endorphins theories that one could put forward. My assumption is that it's a shared norm. When you look at certain comedians like Michael McIntyre, and he talks about the man draw, and it's everyone has something and they can relate to it. And I think it's that shared norm. So when you hear some humor, like with your data puppets, Scott, where most people you spoke to could recognize it in their company, it makes them feel like they're part of a group and reduces social distance and makes you feel closer. And I think that, so when it kind of signals, I understand you. But with humor, if you get it wrong, it can signal the exact opposite. And that might be why people are more worried about doing it, because it can impact on the trust and the likability and all that jazz.
The last reaction you want is, oh, you're trying to be funny.
That was meant to be funny.
But on the flip side, you do get immediate reaction. This is not my original observation, but a lot of comedians talk about you just get that immediate reaction, and it is people don't think about whether they're going to react. If something strikes them as funny, they just laugh immediately, sometimes in spite of themselves, and could not be more gratifying, especially in the data space when some of these kind of buzzword oriented gags that I have just land beautifully. And some of them are pretty inside baseball for the data space. And it's just such a thrill to see people kind of get that joke.
Yeah,
And even when
poking
it
a
took,
bit of fun at ourselves as well,
yeah,
right? Yeah, in a fairly serious topic. It's a very serious conversation. It's having a little bit of room to play with it a bit, I think.
I've had folks come up to me and just sort of quote back a line. And in some cases, it's like, oh, good, somebody else got that. It's like, okay, here's a joke, a really inside twist on some sort of technical term that maybe 9 people will get on Earth. And, somebody goes, oh, yeah, that was really funny. So that's just, couldn't be more gratifying from my side.
And we all love when we've seen something humorous to try and reenact it with other people. And you're at the pub with friends and family say, oh, I heard this amazing joke. Or very rarely, I imagine, when people sit around in a pub that people won't understand the subject matter and tries, oh, I saw these 5 C's of data confluency the other day, and you're not going to talk about that, but you might say, oh, I saw this amazing puppet show and this fish came on, and everyone gets it. I think it's quite unifying. Humor for me can be quite unifying. Get my teeth in.
Exactly.
So you've also, Scott, talked about data being the new bullshit, which is incidentally our favourite sign language word, bullhorns. And
right, I learned this from you during the rehearsal. Yeah.
There we are. See, bullshit, our absolute favourite sign language word. It's educational, this podcast. Who knew? What do you mean by that? Unpack that for me a little bit.
So that's the title of my current keynote, Data's the New Bullshit. But the subtitles is important as well. Why the way we talk about data is holding the industry back on what you can do about it. And it obviously is an allusion to this hackneyed phrase that came out a few years back, data's the new oil, which I found as symbolic of the problem in the data space, because some people would say, data's the new oil, like it needs to be refined and it needs to be, for it to get value. And then some people will go, well, it's not really the new oil because it's not sustainable and you can't reuse oil. And then some people would get cute and say, it's not the new oil, it's the new soil. And the only reason they came up with soil is because it rhymed with oil. I hated all of that. And part of it was the fact that there was no common understanding of what that metaphor was supposed to be. And for me, when you start a conversation with data's the new oil, you expect that everybody will understand you. And so if you're using bad poetry, you're not doing anything to shorten the distance to understanding, which I think a lot of that poetic imagery is there for. So I always rankled at it. And so data's the new bullshit, I was able to play off that, and people just, again, they get it right away. And, sometimes I put a star over the I, depending on the audience, just to, when you put it out in print. But it definitely grabs their attention. And to a great extent, and I'm proud of this, sort of the economy of the words to really sum up the essence of what my whole half-hour session is about in a headline that. But it definitely grabs attention. I get a little smile. People, want to come. And so I've found that, and I think it's relatively daring to use, mild profanity or in that context. And, it works. I love it.
I think when you're scanning a list of 40, 50 keynotes, that kind of headline really stands out.
That's what I think.
It's different. It immediately grabs attention. And you think, oh, yeah, I'm interested in that. There was a study by Science Direct recently that said that there is evidence that a bit of rough language isn't always a bad thing, that actually, especially in creative worlds, many people find swearing helps them feel more authentic, more real, more honest. So your science backs you up on that as well.
Back it up.
You're meant to be more intelligent if you swear as well. I swear I saw a study a few years ago that intelligent people are more likely to swear.
I totally fucking believe that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I swear like a fisherman's wife. Like,
does it make us feel? Does it bring across authenticity when we are using like everyday language in communications? Is that a thing?
It tell you what is a thing is, and it's got a name. I think it's the pratfall effect, like emphasis on the first half of that word on purpose. And it depends on who is speaking. But if somebody who's seen as highly competent shows a mistake or a small imperfection, it makes them feel more likable because it reduces that psychological distance. But if somebody who's distinctly average does it, you just think they're shitter than they were. Yeah. If you're doing it, you got to have a big ego.
So you better be good at it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Scott, you've done data puppets, DataVengers, loud shirts, bold slogans. How do you know when originality is landing and not just getting noticed? How do you know that it's actually engaging, it's working?
A lot of what I do, because a lot of what I do sometimes, I sort of test in person. You get that immediate feedback. You can tell if it's working or not. But I think there's also, we have a sense. I mean, people who are, I consider myself pretty highly creative, especially in the space I'm in. Yeah. You just have a sense of like trying something, and not everything works, but you just keep going. And there's, you just have this reservoir of ideas that you want to try and fiddle with, and not everything works, but you just keep going. But, overwhelmingly, I think my stuff works versus not works. And sometimes it's just for my own, pleasure that I sort of use a line or try something. But in most cases, I want it to, okay, let's, is it effective? And with the puppets, which I'm particularly proud of, is there is a very serious message throughout there, which is similar to my keynote. It's like the way we talk is part of our problem when we're looking for engagement and funding and stakeholder support and sponsorship from executives. You explain it in a way that people don't understand, and guess what? They're not going to understand you. And if you spend 20 minutes in the beginning explaining and translating a whole bunch of terminology that they're not going to use later anyway, you've wasted a bunch of time and you are less effective communicator.
Yeah. I was just going to say, that's the fundamental of when you're looking at why originality works from a brain perspective. So our brains are constantly filtering out noise and working out what deserves energy. And that's where something that's original, like seeing a puppet or potentially a swear word, is original. It's novel. It evokes emotion. It's charged, whatever it may be. So your brain's like, that needs attention. And so it pivots that way. So like with you, Scott, because you've got their attention, you're then able to persuade. But without the attention and an abundance of information, you're unable to do that. So that's the crucial bit. Get their attention and then persuade them.
Get them to engage. The language we use is engage. You've got them engaged. You've got them in front of you. They are engaging with your content. They are ready to have a conversation. It's now not just a campaign headline, it's a conversation. See, engagement is everything.
There we go. Well, that classic kind of, marketing, attention, interest, desire, action, which I learned in, the early days. You can't be interested in something if they didn't get your attention. Yeah. Right? You're not going to take action on something that somebody doesn't desire. So, it really does go in those 4 steps. It's a linear process. Sometimes those 4 take moments. Sometimes they're a 12-month selling cycle, but you will never take action on something you don't desire. You're never going to desire something you're not interested in. You're never going to be interested in something that you didn't pay attention to. And so it has to go in that way. So getting that first.
Yeah. Your first engagement, that first attract piece in. Yeah. Is there, when we're talking about originality, is there a danger that some brands stray too far and maybe become gimmicky rather than it's not seen as a useful
Yeah. I mean, just by the very nature, there's a lot of derivative stuff that I see. I see brands trying to be funny in the data space, and I encourage everybody to try and have something entertaining. But there was a very big campaign, doesn't matter who ran it, where they did a very formal shoot with a bunch of people in the data space, and they were all kind of talking to each other and having the people personify different departments in the organization. And it ended up devolving into just the office.
Right.
Of sort of awkward stares and moments and jittery camera. I'm like, there's nothing original about this at all. So why did you go that way to just like do, and it's not even a parody of The Office. It was just taking that tone.
Without the dancing.
And it was like, this doesn't, why bother?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that it doesn't always land, does it? Sometimes it can be a bit of dad joke's gone a bit too far of, that's enough now. Ginny, do we place higher value on originality when we see something for the first time? Is there anything, or is that just as you said, our brains picking up on something new and therefore being attracted to it?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, there's lots of different effects or heuristics or paradoxes that you could throw out there. I would say it's the fact that you've paid attention to it. Your brain has, by default, placed a higher value on it, even if it's an uncomfortable one at first. It challenges the status quo, and that can be risky. The mere exposure effect or mere exposure paradox, I can't remember exactly which one it is. It's where we prefer familiar things, but when something's original, we respect it more, even if it gives us discomfort. I'm talking around in circles a little bit there.
Yeah, no, that's right. I think we get it. It's the fact that it's the feeling it gives us as well, right? Not just the fact that it was original. It leaves us with oh, I remembered that, or I'm going to think about that later, or we're still talking about the data puppets, and they've been around, but they stick in your brain more. I think the original idea for me tends to stick a bit more.
Much more to come on them too. We've barely begun. I just have so much stuff. I have so much stuff in the can I haven't even edited yet. It's crazy. So yeah, I got a ton of stuff. And I wrote a song yesterday to add another song to it that I cannot wait. I'm talking to somebody later today about doing it. It's just going to be so fun. Yeah.
Taylor Swift, watch out. Yeah.
She's safe. She's fine.
She's all right. She's all right. Does originality always have to be big and theatrical, or can it sometimes be subtle and simple too? What do you think, Ron?
Yeah, short answer, yes, of course.
Yes.
Subtle and simple. And in fact, it's those little micro surprises that marketers could probably more likely do tomorrow versus coming up with a whole campaign around puppets where eventually you would have every single one of your characters, Scott, coming in and making it the least original thing that they've ever seen, because there'll be too many people involved. But the little micro surprises that you can do to reawaken attention, I think, is a good idea.
One thing I wanted to bring in, Ginny, was a campaign that you and I worked on a while back, which was the G-Spot.
Oh, yes.
Which was into the tech sector world, right? That was a little bit risque, a little bit humorous. Do you want to talk a little bit about that, because we still reference that now, right?
We basically were trying to break out of the noise, targeting a bunch of resellers, which was predominantly men in their 20s. So we were trying to stand out from all the other tech brands to get front of mind. And because of the name of the company and the design for our partner brand, we decided we wanted to push ahead and go with the G-Spot, because it was a spot of news. Then the name of the company began with G. So that's what we wanted to push for. We ended up just calling it the Spot, I think, because the CEO loved the idea and the CMO said no.
There you go.
Brand police, get involved. Brand police. Yeah. This is so often the way.
Brand,
This is so often the world in sort of creative agency land. Is we'll quite often go in with maybe 3 ideas at concept. We'll go in with the safe brand guidelines, that's fine. Push the envelope a little bit. This is where we'd kind of like to go, and a brave option of this is the art of the possible. This is what you could do. And this is usually the one that we're all hoping at least some of makes it through. But gradually you get, even if the people in the room say yes to option 3, gradually the business will knock the edges off it and you're kind of back to somewhere where, you're much more nearer option 1, but bravery.
I did still use it though. When we launched the new brand and the incentive and everything that was attached to it in one of the well-known UK resellers, I told the guys, and it did get their attention, but some of them thought it was hilarious and others were like, oh, I'm not sure how that would have gone down. So, you never know.
I did get a brand to sponsor me for the Data Puppets, so I do content for hire, and they when they looked at my portfolio and a bunch of things, I didn't actually bring it up, but one of them said, "Oh, do you think we could do a puppet video?" I'm like, "Do you think we could do a puppet?" It was about data observability, which is a highly digital situation. But for me, it was, again, a very thrilling creative challenge to say, how do you explain that in an extremely analog way? And part of it was symbolizing data as ping pong balls. And I had some clear tubes that were the data pipelines. And I had this kid toy with these little tracks that was the enterprise data stack where the balls were rolling down, and then they would get there'd be like trouble in one of the ball areas, or a ball would fall, and observability was represented by these these other balls I made with an eye on it. So the eye would like look at that problem. And to add even more complexity, the company was called DataBand. And they also said, throw it in the requirements. We always wanted to have a data band. Like, could you make it have? So, oh yeah, sure. So the ball, the alerts that happened were little instruments that, a trumpet would blare, or a piano key would get, a chord would be played, and then in the end there was a whole band playing, and I found a soundtrack, and the CDO was in it. And there was another tip I had was the client voiced the hero of the video, so that was a good move. A data engineer raccoon, and it came out great. I loved it. It was so fun, and they loved it too. So, but I was really pleased that they would want to take that leap there, and we kind of fulfilled these really crazy. I think I'm the only one who got that creative brief. I don't think anybody else had to answer that.
Why not pitch?
We want puppets. We want a band. We want. Okay, all right.
You beat Scott. That's your man.
Marketing
I wanted to be able to say I was a
fun.
professional puppeteer, so I did get paid for it. We'll see if we ever get a second gig, but so far it's been pretty good.
I mean, we don't do. I don't know. We don't seem to do fun stuff anymore. Because Scott, that sounds really fun, really relatable, really easy to understand. It would stand out massively. Would get loads of brand awareness and attention. And I don't know whether it was the pivot towards, I'm sorry to say this, data, where everything needed an ROI attached. And it's much harder to ROI a brand campaign. And we really forget about the fact that brands are based on emotions. And maybe we'll see it pivot more with AI coming through. But Scott, that sounds really fun. I'd love to do something fun like that.
Yeah, everyone would.
Yeah.
Everyone should. So here we go then, towards the end of this episode. Some advice for someone listening or watching who wants to be a bit more original, or is a bit inspired by the conversation that we've had today with you, Scott, but maybe feels a bit nervous about where to start. What advice would you give someone to start being a bit more original, a bit braver?
I'd say two things. One, look at what everybody's doing and try not to do it. So, for instance, I know I could write hilarious memes, but I don't do memes because I know 30 people who do memes. So how's mine going to really stand out? I'm going to have that good of a line that's going to jump out. So it's for the content that I distribute, the tactics I have. I want to try and use things that people aren't doing on purpose. But the bigger advice is, and it's advice I give everybody from enterprise data leaders to data science students who come up to me and say, what do I do? Learn how to tell a story.
Yeah.
That is ubiquitous throughout all of this. And Lucy, you're a great storyteller. You know this by your very nature. If you understand the structure of a story, if you understand getting people from point A to point B, it can just be a superpower to turn people from, I have no idea what you're talking about, to how do we live without this? That's what we want. And that comes through a story. And you can't practice enough. You can't learn enough about storytelling.
Yeah. Great. Ginny, any advice?
I agree around story, and theoretically everyone should have a unique story because they're different companies. Not every company is as unique as they'd like to think, however. I would say don't use AI. If you want to be original, AI by default is based on everything that exists already. So ignore AI and have some original thought. But other than that, I mentioned before, micro surprises would be, if you want to be original, think small.
The little micro yeses that you get. My advice is work with creative people. Seek people like Scott out who do think differently, but understand the stronger message behind what it is you're trying to get out there. And I would say brand guidelines are guidelines. They are not set in stone. And if your ICPs don't have a behavioural science layer to them, get a behavioural science layer in your ICP. Understand the people you're talking to and what drives them, not just that they're 40 to 50 years old, they drive a Volvo, they've got a German Shepherd dog, what actually motivates them. Learn who they are, not just what they do. So
one more, I know you agree with that, Lucy. Don't be boring. There you go. That's it. I heard your video the other day. It was like, don't be boring. We agree with this, but it's a little sticker that my wife gave me that I keep right on my desk.
Yeah,
me always.
Write it on a post-it note, have it around, slap it somewhere that you'll find it. So the big question then that everyone's still stuck around for is if Originality was a biscuit cookie for American audience.
Thank you.
What cookie/biscuit would it be, Scott Taylor?
I would go with Oreo for a variety of reasons. There's a classic Oreo, but I would go for it for the variety it has. There's mini Oreos, there's peanut butter Oreos, there's vanilla Oreos, there's giant Oreos, there's teeny, but they're all Oreos, and they all have a different way, you feel about them, but I felt like that shows just kind of the range of originality.
Nice. Ginny?
I don't know whether we've had this answer already, so it might not be an original one. Sorry, but I'm going to say a Jaffa cake, because it's either a cake or a biscuit and no one knows, and that makes it original and different.
Nice. A little controversial too, so it's in the brain better.
One of the most original, a story I know from advertising history, one of the most original, it's not a biscuit, but it's a cracker, so same, part of the supermarket aisle was, there was a brand, Wheat Squares, I believe it was, and it's a square biscuit or square cracker, and then they introduced Wheat Diamonds, which was a 45-degree turn. And and it was a tongue-in-cheek thing, and you got to look this up. It was a great campaign. It was like, oh, Wheat Diamonds, oh, they taste better. It was just like, that's all it was.
The premium version.
And, I think there's a nice, metaphor in there, Ginny, but just start small, just like a little 45 degrees can make a whole big difference, can it?
Just a little tweak. I've also noticed, Luce, how whenever we think of a biscuit, nobody's brain goes to a Jacob's cracker. Everyone's thinking about a dumpling biscuit, sweet biscuits.
Yeah. Although we did talk about Digestive biscuits with a smear of cheese on it, because that's also a winner.
Yes.
So thank you all very much for sticking with us. Scott, thank you for showing us that originality has a place even in the most traditional industries. Ginny, thank you for bringing the science behind it. Thank you all for listening. We often think that originality means novelty, but I think what we're really getting at is it's something that only you can say. It's something that comes from your emotion that sits behind it. Originality isn't being about first or loud. It's about being unmistakably you in a world that's trying to make everyone the same. So hit subscribe. There's more great content coming if you catch up with some episodes if you missed it. Until next time, everyone, remember, engagement is everything. Thank you.
Thanks.